Brandon Aiyuk has reached elite wide receiver status. In what way? I'll explain. Also, 3 proposed trades for Brandon Aiyuk to Washington. We're going to decide whether it's yes or no. My feeling is you guys know how I feel about this. Stick around, though. Welcome, everybody. Let's go, Niners. My name is Jason Aponte. I'm Jason Aponte. Make sure you guys like this video. Subscribe to the channel if you like what you see. A like helps us out a lot. But we are going to be talking Brandon Aiyuk, but not in the way that you think. And everything is down to negotiations. And today, training camp dates were announced. 10 open dates. And that kind of feels light this year. I'm not sure what's the reasoning behind it. It always felt like there was 14 sessions around there. But it's going to be 10 that are open to the public. Something that's a little bit new. But obviously, the soft deadline for all this is the 23rd when the veterans actually report. So do you want this to go into training camp? Obviously, we've talked about that. But there is something that came out today. And you guys know that I'm a big fan of Matt Harmon and Reception Perception. And he came out with his player profile right on time, I think, for Brandon Aiyuk. And if I was Brandon Aiyuk, I'd probably walk this into my negotiations and slide it across the table because Brandon Aiyuk last season did something that very few receivers have done since 2014. And I know there's this discussion about, well, how much for an elite wide receiver? How much for a wide receiver too? Well, if we're going off of this, and again, it's about getting open against man, against press, against doubles, right? Or against zone. If we're going by this, then Brandon Aiyuk is in a place that not many people are in. Not Amon-Ra St. Brown, not Jalen Waddle, not A.J. Brown. Funny enough how that works. So what I want to start with is I'm going to pull up a slide real quick, guys. And again, guys, make sure you like this video, but we're going to get into this real quick. So let me make sure I pull this one up and make sure you get the right one. All right. So here's your route tree. And again, let me move this out the way so everybody can see. Sorry, give me 1 second. Nope, not that. Where is it? Here we go. Move this out the way. Okay. This is success by route last season. Green, 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 green. No red. Red's bad. Green is good. Corner routes are a lot of the ways that the 49ers use Brandon Aiyuk for explosives. Same thing with post. And then when you look at the out and the dig, but look at the success by routes. Even the 9 route, which Brandon Aiyuk runs the least amount, which obviously makes sense, right? Like, you're not just going to keep sending him on go balls unless you have an advantage or you notice something that the defense is doing, because it's not really necessarily his game. But 61.5% of his routes, success by route, is corner, 77.8 on the post. That's another way that they get him involved with explosives. Out 83.3%, dig 93.6, comeback 91.7, curl 80%, flat 85.7, slant 89.5. Other 66.7, I guess that's just one of those standstill throws that they usually use with Deebo Samuel, and screen 100%. But I wanted to take it a little bit further, and I wanted to go through some of the numbers as well too. So 56.9% of Brandon Aiyuk's routes were against man, and his success rate is 78.7%, which puts him in the 96th percentile. That is very good. 96th percentile, you want to get closer to that 99th. That's it. You don't want to be lower, right? Like the idea of that grading scale is 96 is really good. Zone, 43.1% of his routes, success rate 85.4%, success rate 91st percentile. And against press, 25.5% of his routes, 83.6% success rate, 97th percentile. That is so important. Press. Only 25% of his routes were against press, but 83.6% success rate. Brandon Aiyuk is a dog. And some of the notes that we have here, and again, guys, if you're looking for the full article, it's on receptionperception.com. It's Matt Harmon's website. He does a great job. It just doesn't align with what I think. I learn a lot from all these things. So I want to point something out real quick. So Aiyuk cleared the 90th percentile in success rate versus man, zone, and press coverage in 2023. That territory is reserved for the elite tier of wide receivers. It's only happened 9 times since 2014. the following players accomplished the feat: Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson twice, Stephon Diggs twice, Antonio Brown twice, and Michael Thomas. And now, Brandon Aiyuk in 2023. Funny. Listen to those names. And aside from Michael Thomas, I think we can all agree these guys have been elite at certain times. Maybe Stephon Diggs is not right now, but I know for a fact Devontae Adams and Justin Jefferson still are. Shout out to receiver if you guys haven't watched that. But that list of Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson, Stephon Diggs, Antonio Brown, and Brandon Aiyuk, yeah, that's elite. No one else is on that list. Not CeeDee Lamb, not Tyreek Hill, not, any of these other receivers that are getting paid more. I think this is very interesting. And then another thing is, the common narrative around the 49ers wide receivers is that Aiyuk is their man beater and Deebo Samuel is better against zone. The more common coverage in today's NFL is zone. The fact that Aiyuk turned in 85.4% success rate versus zone coverage score last season puts him in shouting distance of Deebo's career best 86%. It challenges the notion that he's the man beater and he's better against zone. Aiyuk's both. And Aiyuk is at least on par with his teammate now getting open in zone. Make no mistake, Aiyuk is a dominant man and press coverage receiver. His 83.6% success rate versus press coverage is the 13th best result in reception perception history since 2014. So, a lot of this stuff correlates with the things that we saw. 1,300 yards plus on a low amount of targets, insane amount of 20-yard gains, and only 77 receptions. So, when you're listening to Brandon Aiyuk speak and you're listening to him say, I feel disrespected, it's because he knows all of these things as well, too. That he can get open against anybody on anything. And you know what? Before anybody even says it, right? Before anybody even says it, I know you're going to bring up the Super Bowl, right? Well, that's pretty funny because the two games in which Aiyuk was open the most, right? And I'm going to read it verbatim. You may find it interesting that two of Aiyuk's best games in terms of getting open against man were against the Ravens, the best defense in football at the time, on Christmas, and the Super Bowl. The ball just didn't go his way. Maybe if it had in some of those critical moments, the result could have been different. So, there's that narrative of, well, he couldn't separate in the Super Bowl, or where was it? It was there. It was there. The ball just didn't get there. And there's varying reasons to why the ball didn't get there. Offensive line breakdowns, confusing coverages at times. Those things have to contextualize everything, the big picture, right? A guy can get himself wide open, but if the ball's not being thrown to him, it's whatever, right? And I think, again, the larger narrative is, man, he really didn't do anything in the Super Bowl. And it's funny enough, I actually finished watching Receiver, and I implore you guys to watch it because I thought it was great. But I had no idea that Deebo Samuel got injured in the Super Bowl and injured his hamstring and had to make a go of it. I had no idea that George Kittle hurt himself either and had to go to the locker room and come back. So again, like when we're talking about, well, they couldn't get open, well, there's probably reasons for that, right? Aiyuk was open. Deebo was hurt. So when you watch the broadcast, that's when you're going to hear things like, well, look at him getting up slowly. But when you watch the All-22, there's none of that there because it's just play for play. You don't get any commentary that says Deebo Samuel's off to the side or this or that. So I thought that was really interesting as well, too. I'm not trying to go off on a tangent about the Super Bowl, but I'm just talking about these numbers in terms of success rate for Brandon Aiyuk and how they measure against some of the best receivers in the game over the last 9 years, 10 years. And he's had one of the best seasons that anyone's had since they started charting this. I think that's really, really impressive. So, again, is this something that he could probably bring into the negotiation? Probably not. I think this is something that the 49ers know. But I think what this shows is there's a reason that Brandon Aiyuk feels the way that he does because he knows he's open and he knows he can get open. He can get open against man, press, zone, all of those things. And the numbers are there. And the proof is there. It's on the tape. So that's why Brandon Aiyuk feels frustrated. especially when you look around at all these guys that aren't doing what he's been doing in terms of these numbers, success rate, in terms of getting themselves open. Sure, Kyle Shanahan's offense gets guys open, but he gets open against anybody. Press man, zone, doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter who's on the other side. So a lot of the stuff that we're talking about and the common narrative, Brandon Aiyuk wasn't open in the Super Bowl. He was. Someone's got to throw him the ball. He was open. And Deebo Samuel was injured in the Super Bowl, as you saw in receiver. I didn't know that. I did not know that. So the thing is, and I say this all the time, is like a lie makes it around the world 3 times before the truth gets out of bed. And narratives are easier to follow when you see enough people say things instead of doing your own research and looking into things. Now, when it comes to this, I didn't do the research here. This is somebody I trust. Matt Harmon's great at this. He's been doing this for 10 years. So it's not like I went digging, right? I've watched the Super Bowl tape 3 times. I didn't necessarily walk away saying that, oh man, Brandon Aiyuk was having trouble getting open. What separation in this league? Maybe a step or two. There's very rarely going to be a time when you blow a cornerback off and you're 5 yards away from them unless it's a coverage bust. But he was separating. It just wasn't this large gap of separation. L'Jarius Sneed was very good last year. Trent McDuffie's very good. The Chiefs have a very good defense. But again, when you listen to enough people or enough people have said the same thing over and over again, it starts to go into your mind that it's true. That you believe it because you're just like, well, everybody can't be lying. Everybody's not lying. They're just following. That's not lying. It's disingenuous in terms of because you've seen enough people say it, you feel that it's got enough legs for you to say it because everyone else is saying it. And they can't all be wrong. They can if you're parroting something that you haven't looked into. So I think that's kind of where I'm at with this. Again, the numbers in terms of success rate, they are elite. Brandon Aiyuk has reached elite status when it comes to route running, getting himself open. Wide receiver 1, X position. I think that's what, instead of talking about trades, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes, actually, instead of talking about those things, this is what you should be focused on in terms of impact. And the pocket watching, well, it's not worth $30 million. It's not your money. It's not your money. Stop pocket watching. When you look at all the other people that haven't done the things that Brandon Aiyuk has done, and you look at that number, how could Brandon Aiyuk not want that? How could you not pay him that? And again, I think they'll get it done. But I just despise well, it's not worth $30 million. To who? And says who? And why not? Are you paying him? No. The 49ers have cap people and everybody that they work with in terms of getting people in the building, keeping people in the building at a number, whatever. But to say that he doesn't deserve the same amount of money as someone like Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith, when the numbers are strikingly similar and they're not getting open at the rate that he is, and how Brock Purdy and him have such a great chemistry, I think that's another thing that we need to talk about is how much of this boom from Aiyuk has to do with the fact that him and Brock Purdy are very good together. So I don't understand the talking points of, well, he's not worth $30 million. I wouldn't pay him. You're not paying him $30 million. You're not. They are. And he deserves it. When you look at the numbers that he had, he's an all-pro. He's somebody who blocks. He's somebody who gets open at this clip. They're not growing on trees. You can get a draft pick all you want, but the draft pick has to turn into this. And you're betting on something that you don't know. Take what you know and take the stuff that you're looking at and all these numbers that are backing up and all the data that backs up why Brandon Aiyuk feels so disrespected. You could sit here and say the whole time, hey, I don't like the way he's going about it. I am not going to argue that. If that's what your gripe is, I get that. I've gone on record and said myself that I'm tired of this. But it's bled over from that to now, well, he's not worth it and he's not that good. Let's slow down. Let's slow down with that. We can be tired of the antics because I sure am. I don't want to talk about that anymore. That's why I chose to talk about, data points and the things that Brandon Aiyuk does very well, because I feel like that's been lost in the sauce. But don't let the antics get in the way of what you know about him as a player. He's better than Jalen Waddle. He's better than Devonta Smith. And they got paid a certain amount of money. Why wouldn't you want that? And why don't you deserve that is my question. And I think he does. That's the hard part. It's not about the dollar amount. He's not looking to reset the market. Justin Jefferson did that, right? Like in terms of highest paid. And CeeDee Lamb's looking to do that. That's fine. But when Brandon Aiyuk looks around and he sees Jalen Waddle and Devonta Smith and Jerry Jeudy getting a certain amount of money and they haven't done anything close to this, why wouldn't you want that? Just saying. Just saying. All right, guys, 15 minutes in. Make sure you guys like this video, please. It helps a lot. The like is the best thing that you could do right now. Helps boost us into the algorithm and sends us out. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you like this sort of content. And if you guys aren't doing anything a little bit later, 8 o'clock, I'll be on Locked On 49ers, filling in for Brian Peacock with Eric Crocker. So take a look out for that. Okay, so something else that I wanted to talk about is there was a CBS Sports writer, and his name is, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm pulling it up because I had to write an article about it. I believe he's the one who, it's Cody Benjamin. I'm sorry, Cody Benjamin, okay? So Cody Benjamin of CBS Sports came up with 3 proposals for Brandon Aiyuk that include Washington, right? And look, Brandon Aiyuk's not getting traded. Okay, let's just start this with that. But it is fun to talk about these things and go through the hypotheticals and just see what he's laid out for Washington, right? So 3 proposals. One is just a pick. Another one is a player and picks. And then the third one is a 3-team deal in which the 49ers receive a receiver. But we're going to go through all of them. And, you know, again, in the chat, let me know what you think. Spoiler alert, I'm not going to be accepting any of these, but I'm going to give you reasons why. All right. So the first proposal is Brandon Aiyuk for Washington's 2025 first-round pick. So Benjamin says Aiyuk by himself is probably worth a touch more than a first-rounder. The Philadelphia Eagles, for example, sent a first and a third-rounder to the Tennessee Titans for A.J. Brown in 2022. And unlike Brown at the time, Aiyuk is coming off a career year. The Brown deal occurred during the draft, however, and the Commanders aren't in dire need of a splashy upgrade out wide with Terry McLaurin around. Couple that with the 49ers owning more leverage than Aiyuk in contract talks and securing a day 1 pick via trade might actually be considered a major San Francisco victory this late in the offseason. Seeing as Washington is kicking off a new regime, the Commanders could end up owning a early or mid first rounder in 2025, enhancing the appeal of their pick. Look, if Aiyuk wasn't dealt during the draft for a first rounder that would allow the team to restock right then with another first rounder, since they had their initial one at 31, then this isn't going to happen either. Think about this. The 49ers have him under contract. And there was a report that came out by Dan Graziano that said that Aiyuk is really coming around to the idea that he might have to play on his 5th-year option. He can't hold out. Like, that's not an option. He can't hold out. But if you're the 49ers, why wouldn't you make Aiyuk just play out on his 5th year and then go to the draft, franchise tag him, and then trade him? Almost like kind of like what they're doing with T. Higgins right now in Cincinnati, where T. Higgins isn't getting traded. He's not getting a long-term deal. He's going to play 1 year on this franchise tag, which is, it's not for peanuts. He's going to be making about $25 million a year. And then they're going to trade him. And he knows that. So this is the one that I have a lot of. First of all, I'm saying flat out no to this. And here's why. Sure, first round pick sounds great, but that's next draft. And you're trying to win a Super Bowl now. So why wouldn't you hold on to Brandon Aiyuk, run him this season, and then try to get that first round pick next offseason in the draft, as opposed to moving him now and knocking down your Super Bowl chances significantly? So this one's a no. Now, will this one be revisited next offseason once Brandon Aiyuk's done with the 5th-year option? Sure. I mean, that makes sense. But right now, I don't see why they would do this. And I don't think they've gotten to the point where things have gotten so contentious that you have to move him now for anything, right? I don't think that's true, right? So again, I'm going to say no to this one. I think that one doesn't make a lot of sense, especially when you're considering the 49ers are trying to win a Super Bowl now, okay? Proposal number 2 is Brandon Aiyuk to Washington for Dyami Brown from UNC a 2025 second round pick and a 2025 fourth round pick. And here's what Benjamin says. He says, in this scenario, the 49ers don't net a coveted first rounder, but they secure what figures to be a relatively high day 2 selection, plus a fourth rounder that gave him a grand total of 6 picks in the first 4 rounds of the 2025 draft. Brown isn't really a needle mover after 3 underwhelming NFL seasons, but the former North Carolina prospect has specific traits, blocking aggression, deep speed, that could translate quickly to Kyle Shanahan's offense, providing rotational depth behind Deebo Samuel, Juwan Jennings, and Ricky Pearsall. This one's a no. Also, Dyami Brown has 29 total receptions. And sure, he's fast, and you like the ability to stretch the field. But for that, you drafted Jacob Cowan. So give him a look. He's already in your building. Yes, a second and a fourth rounder sounds appealing because now you can stockpile at different positions too on top of that. But Dyami Brown isn't somebody that I'm dying to get on my roster or somebody that I think is on the verge of breaking out, in my opinion. He's had 3 seasons to try to get that done. 29 total receptions in 3 seasons. Sure. Is the Washington culture great? I think that's what Adam Peters is there to fix. So it's not, but still. And how quickly would it be that Dyami Brown gets there and ends up right in the doghouse? And now what? You got a rotational guy that could end up being like a Ray McLeod, which is fine. You need as many receivers as you can. But again, if you're looking for a speed guy, you've got Jacob Cowan. Just stick with him. I'm gonna say no on this one. Absolutely not. I don't want to do that. I get you get the 2 picks. You definitely get the 2 picks, which is good, the second and fourth rounder. That's fine, but I don't want to move off of Brandon Aiyuk and what I know for what a draft pick might be. Again, it's the mystery box thing. So I know that Brandon Aiyuk's good. I know that Brandon Aiyuk is very good. In fact, the numbers that I brought up earlier and the data points I brought up earlier, Brandon Aiyuk is elite. He's elite. So why would I move off of that for something that something might be, right? And the data is out there about wide receivers drafting, as far as their bust potential. They have the highest bust rate, wide receivers. 29% of draft picks, I believe for the last 20 years, have gotten a second contract with a team. By far the lowest of any position. By far, not even close. Some of that has to do with, hey, they weren't going to pay me. They can trade that. Fine. You want to contextualize that? I think the bigger data point that you should take away is you look at these guys that you draft early on, and for every Justin Jefferson, there's a Jalen Reagor. For every CeeDee Lamb, there's a Henry Ruggs, unfortunately. Right? Like, that's the thing is you look at, well, this player looks great. What's the guy's name from that was drafted by New England? NQ Harry, right? Like the list goes on and on. Traylon Burks, this is the part that I think people forget. It's like, yeah, everyone loves draft picks. But when a draft pick isn't Justin Jefferson and it ends up being Jalen Reagor, then what? And what did you move him for? So I don't get that part. I definitely don't get that part. All right. So the third proposal is a 3-way deal. Now, this one is completely off the rails, but I will admit this is a far more intriguing prospect just based on who's involved, okay? So it's a 3-way deal with Denver and Washington. So Denver gets Jamison Crowder and Washington's 2025 third. Washington gets Aiyuk. San Francisco gets Courtland Sutton and Washington's 2025 second rounder. And here's what Cody Benjamin thinks. Let's get funky. Denver is in a bit of a contract bind of its own, with Sutton contemplating a training camp holdout as he seeks a pay raise entering year 7. While Sean Payton may not prefer to part with his club's most accomplished wideout, he could also use more resources for the long-term build around rookie quarterback Bo Nix. Crowder's aging, but his reliability as a possession target would probably appeal to Payton's eye for efficiency. San Francisco, meanwhile, would essentially be renting a proven downfield starter in Sutton while also recouping a second rounder by shipping Aiyuk to Washington. The answer for this is no, by the way. But Courtland Sutton is a fairly good receiver. But he's 28. He wants to get paid. Having him as a rental to let Aiyuk go and then you have a 2025 second rounder to mess around with. Look, last season it wasn't great for Courtland Sutton. A lot of that has to do with the fact that Russell Wilson hasn't been very good for a while. And Denver was a mess early on in the season. But he wants to get paid. So does Aiyuk. He's obviously not going to get Aiyuk money. Sutton is a proven receiver, though. But how much does he have in the tank? How much of last season was Russell Wilson regressing? How much of it is he may not be the guy that he thinks he is? The answer is no for a rental. But it is a little bit more interesting when you throw in a player of Sutton's caliber. I just don't see it happening. I just don't see it happening. So for me, when you're looking at the way these proposals are going, it's people just making stuff up. When it comes to Washington, when it comes to how, they're obviously the desirable target, right? Because of Jaden Daniels and, Adam Peters obviously loves Aiyuk. It's harder and harder when you start to really go through the proposals and see who actually could be players for a trade for him right now before training camp. I just don't see it happening. One, the 49ers are trying to win a Super Bowl. Two, he's under control. So why would you be forced to move him? Three, revisit this later in the offseason if you want to do that, right? We've all had to talk about Deebo Samuel's guaranteed money comes off next season. I mean, I think we all assumed you sign Aiyuk, you use the money that Deebo's not going to have on the books. That I don't know. But this is why you got to give yourself this sort of flexibility. You can't put yourself in a box and just say, all right, well, we're going to roll with one or the other. I think you take this season under a fifth year, you reevaluate, and then you make a decision based on that. And also, you'll have a year of data with Ricky Pearsall to see what he is. I think we're all excited for the young man, but we've been excited before for other guys. You have to see what it looks like in pads. You have to see what it looks like against people, not against air. It's hard to gauge what receivers are in OTAs and minicamp when there's no bump and run or there's no press man and there's no pads on. It's hard. Everybody looks good running routes against other guys, against air and stuff. Everyone. If you don't look good, that's a real big problem. But this year has to be, we've got Aiyuk regardless. If we can't hammer out a long-term deal, which I still believe in my heart that they get done, if you can't hammer this out, you have the fifth-year option. You revisit all this in the next offseason. And you'll have the data point of what you think Ricky Pearsall is, what you think Jacob Cowing is. And then you can make a more, I guess, informed decision. As opposed to right now just cutting your legs off from being a team that wants to get back to the Super Bowl. I don't think the situation is nearly as contentious as people want to believe. Are we bored with the antics? For sure. I think we all are. But when you go through certain data points, you understand why Brandon Aiyuk feels the way that he feels, and you understand that this is a business, and the 49ers are they're also doing business at their normal speed. George Kittle said it. He's like, this is what they do. He goes, with my deal, with Warner's deal, everything. So again, did the 49ers have this one time where it backfired a little bit on them because the market got changed with all these other deals? For sure. When Nick Bosa was eligible, there was no other defensive end that could have changed the way that they were going to pay him. He still wanted to be paid the highest, right? And he got that. But there was no other defensive end that could have blew up the market, right? With wide receiver, guys were getting paid while the 49ers were just saying, hey, we'll get back to it and we'll check here. And then that changed things. That's the thing, is people are upset with the patience that the 49ers show, or I guess like the impatience of the fan base to get it done. It's like, why wouldn't you get it done earlier? But this time, it's a little bit different because there are other people that can change the market. There wasn't when Fred Warner was looking for his deal. There wasn't when George Kittle was up for his deal. There wasn't when Nick Bosa was up for his deal. It just happened to be this way with Brandon Aiyuk. Didn't happen with Deebo Samuel either, actually. Right? Like the number was there, like that they wanted to get to. Brandon Aiyuk has been on record saying that things changed. They had a number that they were close with. And then, again, you look around, you're like, Jalen Waddle got that? Well, then I want that. Right? And we went through the data points. Jalen Waddle's not getting open at the degree that Brandon Aiyuk is. Jalen Waddle also has the same similar production. It's this particular situation that is a little bit different than the others. So the 49ers have the way that they do business. And this time, it backfired just a little bit because now the number changes and everything as well, too. So shout out to everybody in here. Almost 30 minutes in. Thank you guys again. Make sure you guys like this video. Helps a lot. Subscribe to the channel if you like the content and everything. And hit that notification bell for when we go live. Training camp is just about 10 days away, I believe, is when the first closed practice starts, and there's only 10 sessions that are open. Looking to make my way out there. If you guys, I'm gonna start a GoFundMe to try to get these plane tickets to get out there, man. And also the tickets themselves are $20 per session to get in. So yeah, I'm gonna have to get a job at Walmart or something like that to try and save up for these plane tickets. So trying my best, but I definitely am planning to be out there for nearly all the sessions as well too. So thank you guys for joining. I appreciate all you guys for tapping in. Again, like I said, if you guys are looking for extra content, I will be on Locked On 49ers with Croc at 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. So you guys can check that out if you are looking for extra content. I know you guys all watch Locked On, so it'll be pretty cool. I'm going to fill in for Brian Peacock. Yeah, exactly, Joey. $20 camp tickets. It's a donation, though, to the 49ers Foundation. Bless their heart. So, all right, guys, I'm going to get out of here. But thank you guys again for tuning in. Make sure you guys like this video on the way out. And as always, let's go Niners. Welcome, everybody. Let's go Niners. My name is Jason Aponte.